Welcome back to the Girl Out of Order podcast. Today's episode is quite potentially one of the most game-changing topics I've ever talked about, not only on Girl Out of Order, but in my own life, with my relationships, with my children, with my business. And so when you are listening to this podcast, I just want you to take a moment to take a deep breath in. Let it go. Remember, this is the part of the season where we're talking about releasing. And so today's episode, sister, I can promise you is going to stimulate so much in your mind and your spirit. And if you apply what we're going to talk about, girl, this is a game changer. So today we are talking about questions. Now that might sound a little bit weird, but hang in there with me because I'm going to tell you about how the power of questions has absolutely transformed my life. It's transformed my energy, my health, my business, my relationships. Because here's what humans do. We walk through life so often subconsciously asking poor quality questions. We don't even realize we're doing it a lot of times. So today on the Girl Out of Order podcast, I'm so thankful that you're here because I know this is going to have a beautiful impact on you. We're going to talk about asking better questions. So girl, you can have a better life. Because what I know to be true is that the quality of the questions you ask shapes your mindset. And your mindset shapes your values. And your values shape your decisions. And your decisions, my friend, determine the quality of your life. So, what questions are you asking as you move through life? I want you to use this episode as an opportunity to wake up a little bit, to shake off the rust, and to get really honest. Is there a primary question that you ask consciously or subconsciously that is actually determining the quality, the effectiveness, and the joyfulness of your life? I was recently talking with one of my daughters and she was really struggling. And she said, Mom, I get going in my day, and then in the evening comes about, I get on social media or I watch Netflix. I just want to check out. And I just end up in this anxiety loop. I just feel so anxious. And at first, as we were pulling it back, I thought maybe she was falling into the comparison trap, which is super normal and really unhealthy. I'm just as guilty as the next person. But when we started to talk a little bit more about it, what I realized is it wasn't necessarily the action of scrolling social media or watching Netflix. Neither one of those things are inherently bad or evil. But what it did is it bumped up against this question that my daughter moves through life with. So what she said to me is, she said, I get done doing these things and I feel like I've done nothing with my life. I just feel empty. I feel angry at myself. I feel anxious because I didn't do enough. So then I went, aha, we've hit on something. I said to her, how often, darling, do you ask yourself, did I do enough? And when she didn't even pause. She said, every single day, all day, am I doing enough? Am I doing enough? Am I doing enough? Can you relate? Holy smokes. As soon as she said that, I thought, I have to bring this to my community, because I've learned a lot about the primary question. I was taught about that by Tony Robbins, and I've done episodes on this before, but for some reason it's hitting me differently right now because it's actually expanding into a way that we can show up for our life that is much more curious and much more interested, as opposed to reflexively asking a question that puts us on the hunt for something that doesn't serve us. So what happened with this daughter of mine is she was asking this question, did I do enough or am I doing enough? And it got her on this anxiety spiral, this loop. And that question, did I do enough? Did it, even just saying that, what do you think? What inside of you are you thinking? Oh, that's a great question. Of course not. You're saying, well, that's a crappy question, and it's going to lead to a crappy result. And it's exactly what it did for her. It led to pressure and fear and urgency. And here's a really big one: self-judgment. So often, the primary question that we carry with us throughout our days leads to self-judgment, which makes us feel small, which makes us feel insignificant, and which makes us feel not enough. And so this anxiety that she was feeling, I helped her wake up a little bit. Like, it might not be the Netflix. It might not be the TikTok or whatever she's scrolling. It just might be that she's asking a poor quality question. And so she's having this energy in her life that is negative and the exact opposite of what she wants. Here's what I want you to hear, sister. The question that you live inside shapes the life you experience. Let me say that again. The question you live inside shapes the life you experience. And that can feel kind of heavy, but it shouldn't, because here's the great news. If you're living inside a question that you are actually asking consciously or unconsciously, you get to change the question. You get to rewrite it. But first, you have to release it. And you can't release something that you're not aware of. When I first started studying the primary question in Tony Robbins' Date with Destiny, I realized that the question that I was carrying with me, and it was basically like putting on goggles that I viewed life through, is how can I have, do, and be enough? And then the end to it, which I never said, but it really meant to be loved. How can I have, do, and be enough to be loved or to be safe? And when I became aware of the question that I was carrying throughout my days, it was like, you just want to rip it off you. You just want to like get it out of your nervous system. We can't release what we aren't aware of. So what is a primary question? A primary question, it's a question that we unconsciously ask all day long. When we go into a meeting, am I enough? When we have a conversation with a potential partner, do I have what it takes? Am I beautiful enough? Am I blank enough? Fill in the blank, sisters, because so many of us women do that. Am I whatever it is enough? It filters, a primary question filters how we interpret everything, every relationship, every conversation, every success, every failure is filtered through our primary question. And like I said at the outset, I want to reinforce this. The questions we ask determine the mindset that we have, which leads to an emotional state that we operate within. And it's from this emotional state, sisters, that we make choices. And it's those choices that determine the life we experience. So what emotional state do you desire to live in? And then get honest. What emotional state are you living in? As you know, I'm a family law litigator, and oftentimes I have I have like a business primary question that happens sometimes. Not sometimes. If it's not a primary question, if it doesn't happen frequently or maybe even all the time. But I fight this primary question. I'm not prepared. Am I prepared enough? Do I know enough? Am I smart enough? Some version of that when I'm going into a hearing or a trial or a client meeting. And I noticed this the other day. I was getting ready to go up before the judge to do a pretty routine divorce. And I felt this primary question bubble up in me. Do you really know what you're doing? And I thought to myself, no. We're not listening to that question anymore because I've become aware of when these questions pop up, I recognize them. So here's what I want you to understand as you start to release a poor primary question and rewrite a more empowering one. They're going to dog you. They're going to try to rear their ugly heads. They're not going to want to give up control. It's when we become aware of these questions that we can recognize them before they sink our teeth into our mindset, which controls our actions, which then controls the quality of our life. So if you want the quality of your life to improve, if you want to be more satisfied, more joyful, more hopeful, more positive, the quality of the questions you ask absolutely must improve. Why does this matter? The quality of our questions matters because you have to decide what's most important to you in how you live your life. If it's just about accomplishments, well, you might need different questions. But if you want your life to matter, if you want to make an impact, if you want to navigate with elegance and grace, the identity shifts, the role changes, is this it moments in your life, then you simply must rewrite your primary question in a way that will lead you to the outcome for your beautiful life. This last date with Destiny, I had to get honest again that I had lapsed back into the how can I be enough primary question without thinking. And I had been battling it for a while, but as life gets busy, as identity roles shift, as I'm navigating menopause and my brain is understandably fuzzy, whatever the thing may be, because life is going to life, right? Life is going to life. It's going to happen, right? As I started to get honest again, and this is something you may have to periodically do, especially as you're building the reps of the new question, I recognized that I had gotten a little bit asleep to my primary question again. And once I linked that to the anxiety I was feeling and the negative talk that started to creep back in, I was like, oh, no, I have the tools. I want to rewrite this. And so I did. I spent some time rewriting that primary question, and I'm going to share that with you at the end. But I want you to understand what kind of primary questions you might be on the lookout for. So I want to give you some examples so we can make this tangible and practical. So you're not just listening to me talk about my story or the story of my daughter. I want you to see yourself in this journey. I don't do this podcast just to hear myself talk. If I did that, I would be bored to tears. I do this podcast for the women who come up to me and say, that thing that you said woke me up, or that story that you shared helped me see that I'm not alone. So I want you to know you're not alone in this journey of the primary question that is not elevating your life. So let me give you some examples of questions for you to consider. Am I doing enough? How about this one? What will they think? That's one that one of my daughters really battles with. I tell her that she's got to be on guard for being a chameleon, always looking around to think what other people will think of her. When I was a brand new mom, I didn't have a lot of great examples of parenting growing up. And so I spent so much time looking around at all these other women that were doing it so perfectly in my mind. And I was like, what are they going to think of me if they see that I can't manage my schedule and I can't do this and I'm not doing that right and this? Ooh, it led to such a level of anxiety that I actually fell into depression. Can you relate? How about this one? Am I falling behind? Is it too late? There was a gal I worked with in one of my masterminds, and she said, I think it's just too late. I think it's passed me by. It has never passed you by. Life is always happening for you, not to you. It doesn't matter if you're 17 or 77. It is not too late. But if you tell yourself it's too late, or you ask the question, am I just too late? Is it too late? Guess what's going to happen? You're going to look for evidence that it's too late, and the evidence will appear, because what you focus on gets bigger. What you're looking for appears. So why not look for better things? Why not ask more quality questions? When you ask questions like those examples I just gave, what does it create in you? Not only anxiety, but comparison, jealousy. Oh, that's been a big one for me. Scarcity has dogged me when I ask the question, will I have enough? Will there ever be enough? I live in scarcity. So guess what I find? I find scarcity. It also creates urgency, which can lead to impatience, which can damage your relationships. Because remember, if you have an impatient mindset, you're going to make choices from impatience, which is going to lead you to relationships that break down due to you guessed it, impatience. That was me as a young mom. As a mom, period. Took me a very long time to get on the other side of that. But now that I'm here, I want to bring you along quicker so you don't have to feel the pain and the sting and cleaning up the relationships that I've had to do. Have you ever felt overwhelmed in life because you've asked yourself, how can I possibly do what needs to be done? I actually woke up this morning feeling that exact same thing. Now, that's not a primary question, but it is a question I asked. And guess what? I got a really crappy mindset out of it. And as a result, I had an ineffective coaching call with my coach because I was all over the place, because I was already on the hunt for overwhelm. Most of the burnout you feel, sister, is not from you reaching your capacity or from too much responsibility. It's from living inside those unhelpful questions. So questions, let's talk about how questions can actually shape your mindset. You need to understand that your beautiful brain, your incredible brain, is a problem-solving machine. I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel at war with my brain. That's a lie. Because what our brain actually exists to do is not just survive, it exists to solve problems. It will search for the answers to whatever questions you ask. Our brain does not know the difference between what's real and what we tell it. So why not tell it a different story? Why not feed your brain beautiful questions? I went to court yesterday and I was talking to this gentleman, and I adore him, but he is always miserable, always overwhelmed, always stressed. And I say always because I don't think I've ever had an interaction with this man where he has not talked about how burned out he is, how stressed out he is, how overwhelmed, and how this job sucks. And I can tell you that he's asking really poor quality questions. And so as we had a conversation, he said, how are you doing? I said, I'm doing outstanding. It's a beautiful day today. And he's like, how do you walk through life like this? We do the same job. We have the same responsibilities. You're happy. I'm not. And I said, I ask better questions. If your question is, what's wrong with me? Your brain is going to look for flaws. But if your question is, how can I be even more present in this beautiful moment? You're going to find beautiful moments. If you ask yourself, why am I so behind? Your brain is going to find the evidence that you're behind. If you ask a different question, listen to these and tell me how these feel. What matters most right now? Your brain's going to find clarity. What matters most right now? You are going to anchor yourself to the present, and your brain's going to be like, aha, perfect information. Let me find clarity. If you ask, what's working in my life? Your brain's not only going to find what's working, but it's going to build on that and find possibility. If you ask yourself a question that this gentleman that I met, he is one of the most beautiful lights. And we were talking about our primary question, and he said, oh, mine's easy. What miracles am I going to find today? And I was like, what? What kind of question is that? That's incredible. And he said, guess what I find every day? I'm like, I'm going to go out on a limb and say, you find miracles. And he said, every single day, without fail, I find miracles. Here's what I want you to hear. Your brain goes on a scavenger hunt for answers to the questions you are asking. So ask better questions. All right, so we're going to wrap up with some really beautiful tools that you can take with you. The first one is to identify your primary question. In order for you to identify your primary question, here's what I want you to ask and reflect on and write in your journal. What are you constantly checking for? What are you on the hunt for? Are you looking for what's wrong? Or are you looking for what's right? Are you looking for what's stressful? Or are you looking for what's beautiful? Second question, what are you afraid of getting wrong? I'm just going to let that one sit there. What are you trying to control? If there are things that you are trying to fix, manage, and control, then there's probably a primary question around that you need to get in touch with. Who are you trying not to disappoint? This is such a painful question, but you've got to get honest so you can identify the question that is driving the quality of your life. And then I love this one. This one's very powerful, especially for us high achieving, ambitious women. What are you trying to prove? What are you trying to prove? When you ask those questions, you're going to start to get underneath a primary question that might be driving your mindset, your choices, and your quality of life. Am I enough? What will they think? Am I doing this right? How do I keep the peace? That's an awful question, because what's going to happen is you're going to find conflict. And then this one, how do I not mess this up? Sister, if you find yourself in any of these questions, write, because you're going to come to a conclusion that there's going to be several questions at first, but one of them is going to bubble up. So look for common themes between the questions that you find yourself asking. There's no shame. This is all about awareness and awakening. Remember, we are talking about releasing. You can't release a question that you don't know you're asking. So then the second tool is to upgrade that question. If you are asking a question that you know is not great, upgrade it. You're going to start to rewrite it so you can reduce your pressure, so you can increase your agency, be more actively involved in creating a better quality of life. So you can create a calmer mindset. And I love this. You can open more possibilities. So if you're asking, how do I not mess this up? Flip it. Just say, what can I do today to move myself towards my outcome? I'm spitballing here, but take the how do I not mess this up and just flip it. You could, once you do this exercise, put it in ChatGPT and say, these are all the negative questions I'm asking, or all of the things that I'm looking for. Can you help me flip them and ask them in a more positive way? And then just start reading and see what lands for you. So if you ask yourself, am I doing enough? Flip it and say, what matters most right now? What will they think? Turns into, what do I think? How do I keep everybody happy? That's not leading anywhere good. Ask yourself, how can I honor myself and others in this moment now? Anchor it to the now. Instead of what if I fail, say, what will I learn? And then, am I behind? What's my next right step now? Anchor it to the now. If your question is creating you anxiety, it's not serving you, and you get to rewrite it. And then the last tool I'm going to leave you with, sisters, is make this a daily practice. Make this a daily practice for a mindset shift. Like I like to call it a mind shift. If you want to have a mind shift that's going to increase the quality of your life, ask more quality questions on the daily. Make it usable now. This is what you want to do. Here's a simple, repeatable practice. 1, notice the question running in your mind. Ask yourself, does this question calm me and excite me? Or does it contract me and make me feel smaller or trapped? And then replace it with a clearer, kinder, truer, more gentle question. So a better daily question, let me give a couple examples and we'll wrap right up. What would alignment look like for me today? What's one thing I can do with intention? Or borrow my friend Scott's question, what miracles am I going to experience today? Assume a positive outcome and you will find a positive mindset. And when you feel that positive mindset, that mind shift, your whole life will change. Listen, sisters, you don't actually have to muscle it to change your whole life. You just need to change the question that you ask as you move through your life, and your whole life will actually change. So I changed my primary question from how can I have, do, and be enough to be loved to how can I be even more present in this moment, knowing I am divinely guided. And I have that question next to me. I'm even looking at it right now. And I remind myself every day to be present in this moment, knowing I'm divinely guided. And so that question is leading me to be on the hunt for more positivity, more hope, more joy, more clarity, and less anxiety. So, what are you ready to release? What question are you ready to release? You are not broken. You are not behind. You might just be a little bit asleep. So become more conscious. Awaken to the question that is running your mindset. Because when you change your mind, when you make that mind shift, your whole quality of life changes. So ask a better question. Shift your mindset. Remember that mind shift. Make better choices for your life, and make better choices, take better actions, and I promise you, you will build a better, more fulfilling life. Your life is waiting. And like I always say, the world is waiting for you because we need what only you can provide, sister. I'll see you next week.